talk logical fallacies in exercise, sports science, nutrition science. You're like, what in the world are you talking about? Some of you are like, yeah, this is, I know what this. So when we think about thinking logically, when we think about critically thinking, there are many, unfortunately, and I'm sure I'm committing one in this video, logical fallacies that occur. One of the fallacies that it's most prevalent in exercise, sports science, nutrition science especially, is affirming the consequence. Okay, so if I haven't lost you already, let me explain why you care. Why should you care about affirming the consequence? Let's say somebody is super jacked and they're selling a product, okay? And so you get super jacked Dave, and super jacked Dave says he got super jacked because he took this cool supplement, this new supplement. Well, Dave got super jacked by this, maybe by the supplement, but by other things as well. So that's a logical fallacy of affirming the consequence. So the supplement could be, in the research literature, the supplement could show positive gains in muscle growth in a certain group of people under certain conditions, right? And then again, Dave took it and got super jacked, and now we're looking at Dave and we're saying, well, it's got to be the supplement. We don't know that. Dave could be on anabolic steroids. Dave could have been training for 50 years. Well, he's not going to be that old. Dave could have been training for 15 years and be doing a volume program, and that's why he got super jacked, right? That's where we get into trouble. That's affirming the consequence, okay? The supplement marketing world loves that because they can roll out a high-powered superstar and say, well, high-powered superstar got this way because of this supplement. That's affirming the consequence. The supplement has some sort of basis in physiology. It seems to be something that works in the research literature. Therefore, it worked for Dave or Sally or whoever it is, this athlete that saw positive outputs. So it's like looking through the wrong end of a telescope. So you're looking at the end of the telescope that should be pointed to the sky, trying to figure out what's going on from the sky's perspective into the telescope. Like that, it doesn't even make any sense. So, and I've fallen for this. We all have. Some of it's obvious and some of it isn't. It's really easy to, as a strength coach for me, to look at my programming and look at another weightlifter, for instance, let's say strength coach, weightlifting coach, and look at the weightlifter and look at their programming like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing any of that. And they have this amazing output. That must be the problem, is my program sucks. And maybe my program does suck, but I don't know that for sure. It could be that athlete is an Olympic level weightlifter, and virtually any program would work to some degree. And by the way, that's a major problem when we evaluate coaches, I think. Oftentimes we evaluate the coach on the highest level of achievement in the sport. So we say XYZ, or, Coach L, okay, coach is an Olympic level athlete, or coach is a professional athlete. Therefore, Coach L must be a great coach because the athletes they're coaching they're the best in the world. That doesn't follow suit. It could be just that athlete's that good. Okay, so you're looking at the output, this amazing athlete, and you're assuming the coach was the reason why. Okay, because we know good coaches produce good athletes. Well, you're making a jump there to say this coach must be a really good coach because he produced really good athletes. That's a logical fallacy. That's, if I coach soccer and I get Ronaldo, I don't need to know a whole lot about soccer, and Ronaldo's still going to be pretty awesome, right? You get some of the greatest players of all time. The coaches were important, but how much? I mean, any good coach will tell you great coaches are made by great players, like really high level. So some of my greatest coaching achievements were athletes you will never hear of, athletes that barely made it into a university nationals, for example, in weightlifting. But I'm more proud of those accomplishments as a coach than I am those that have achieved even greater things. Okay, well, I won't say more proud, but just as proud. How's that? If you worked yourself backwards, though, affirm the consequence, you look at some of my better athletes, and it's just assume that I was a great coach. Okay, you could also look at athletes that underachieved and assume it was the coach, because bad coaches make bad athletes, right? Well, if you have a bad athlete, it doesn't mean it was a bad coach. Okay, so if I'm looking at that from a coaching perspective again, and I say, well, this athlete is achieving and mine isn't, it must be because I'm a bad coach. Not necessarily. I think some reflection is warranted. You could be part of the problem, but it may in fact be the athlete. It may be nutrition. It may be focus issues. It may be, right? And so, when we're evaluating things like, in a coaching world, that seems pretty, we make those mistakes, especially with the highest level. But when we're evaluating like our own training program, let's say when we're trying to get in better shape or lose weight, okay, we could say, well, so-and-so lost weight on this program. It must be the program. Well, and then when I use the program, I'm not getting these results. Well, what's going on? I thought, I should look like this person because I'm following this program. What we don't know is what the other person was doing. Were they exercising more than you? Were they being mindful of their stress? Physiologically, are they different than you, right? Do they handle stress better, for instance? Are they getting an adequate amount of sleep? And you're not. You can't just say, well, it was the program's fault. Well, there's a lot of inputs into an output, right? Very rarely in human beings, very rarely, especially when it comes to exercise and what happens with exercise, is the outputs are just, inputs come in and have a positive output that you'd expect. Like most of those things are illegal, like anabolic steroids. You take anabolic steroids, I'm pretty confident in the output, right? We do a training program. There could be any number of reasons that we get the output we get. And it may have nothing to do with the program or very little to do with the program. It may have everything to do with poor nutrition during the program. So what do you do with all this data? Like, why am I explaining this? Why should you care? Well, when you're critically evaluating things, that means that you're going to have to take into account all the different inputs that are possible. This is where a coach can help. A coach that is a good coach. And how do you know a good coach? If you're, well, you can look at the resultant people that they've worked with, but you can also talk with them and ask them poignant questions about nutrition. What part of nutrition play in your training program? The athletes I have produced, have you produced athletes? Let's say it's a weightlifting coach. Have you produced athletes of different levels? Have you worked with masters athletes? Have you worked with people that never qualify for a university, an international meet or a national meet, but they've seen progress over time for where they started? I mean, those are important questions, not just looking at this grandiose output and saying, well, they must be a good coach, because you just don't know, is the point. You don't know. Okay. Like a supplement, evaluating a supplement. Well, the research literature says it should work. Okay. And then you evaluate the people that have used it, and you start to see, they're seeing some progress. Well, what else are you doing though? Well, I started lifting weights. I hadn't been lifting weights before. Well, it kind of confounds the data a little bit, right? Don't affirm the consequence. It's something related is the idea of correlation and causation, right? Correlation does not equal causation. And just because there's a relationship, like everybody, let's say 100 people were taking a supplement and they all got super jacked. And you're like, whoa, yeah, that must be the supplement. But then you come to find out they all were using the same weight training program and had the same physiology, I assume. And the supplement was actually just a placebo. Okay. It was the training program they all were following, and not the placebo, not the supplement that was making the difference. Okay. So, the supplement on paper, let's say it should have worked, but it actually was just providing a placebo effect. It worked on paper. I see this all the time in the supplement world. Biochemically, it should follow this, but then the supplement's going to have problems getting past the liver and getting it where it's supposed to in delivery at the right time. And there's so many factors that go into that, how fast it's absorbed or not absorbed and so on. And then somebody gets super jacked while they took the supplement, and you tie the knots together and think, this is it. It's the supplement. Okay. It's the supplement. It has nothing to do with the supplement. It had to do with the change in training program or your mindset, or even just the placebo effect of thinking it works, right? And be able to work harder as a result of thinking you were taking a supplement that mattered. All right. I hope you find this valuable. I know it's a little bit off topic. It doesn't give any specific, like training outputs or anything like that, but I think it's important in the field that is, especially the nutrition side, it's just full of misinformation. Many times we get into trouble because we affirm the consequence instead of understanding that an output can have many inputs, and we need to critically evaluate all those inputs. That's why it takes a while to really figure out in the research literature if a supplement or any kind of concept actually is supported. And we usually find out it might be supported in some groups and not others, at different times in others. Dosage matters, right? All these things have to be teased out. It's because there's so many inputs. And every once in a while, a study will get lucky and have a massive output, a significant output, a great output. And we should certainly take note of those inputs, but understand like even the participants could have been the reason why that this study had such great success. We don't know who they are in terms of their muscle fiber type. Maybe you just lucked out and randomly got a whole bunch of type 2 fiber dominant people and did a training program, and it showed that they all had amazing results. Well, it had to do with their genetic their genetic construction and less to do with the program. And another program may have yielded similar results. That's part of research. It's hard to weed all the air out of it. It's impossible. But when evaluating information, we need to do it from a critical eye and not start with the output and work backwards. That's a mistake that I see. And again, understanding that can help you as the consumer, coach, whoever it may be, in making better decisions for your client or for yourself. All right. That's enough talking in circles. I'll see you in the next video.